Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We're going to go ahead and get things started. This is the Atlassian Enterprise JIRA webinar. This is our third installment of this webinar, and in this particular case, we have 3 people joining us for the presentation today from all over the world, in fact. My name is Ken Olofsson. I'm the Portfolio Product Marketing Lead based here in San Francisco. And then we also are joined by Bartek Gatz, who is our JIRA Product Manager based in Poland. So it's late afternoon for him, enjoying the long summer evenings. And then we have Brian Rollins, who's the JIRA Business Manager, who's joining us directly from Sydney in the dead of night. So we are truly spanning the globe for this one, and we're quite excited for you guys all to join us today. Make sure this thing's in there. Okay. So the agenda today, we have 5 broad topics we want to cover. I'll kick things off just by spending a few minutes giving you guys an update on the Atlassian Enterprise program with a few announcements here, and then I'll hand it off to Bartek, who's going to cover quite a bit of detail about what we've been doing recently around JIRA administration and federation, and then Brian will join us towards the end of the call and talk about some of the initiatives we have internally around JIRA Scale and what's the latest improvements that we came out with in JIRA 6. So let's go ahead and get into it here. So for those of you that are not familiar, the Atlassian Enterprise program is something that we kicked off a little over a year and a half ago. It's mainly comprised of 3 things. These are additional services and support that we provide for our largest enterprise customers. So this includes 24/7 phone and online support, as well as some extensive training through Atlassian University and through some very specific administration courses that we've developed, as well as a whole bunch of resources that we put together to help large deployments of JIRA be more successful. There's also a community component to this, which this webinar is part of, where we do regular webinars for all the products involved, which includes JIRA, Confluence, and Stash, as well as workshops. And I'll get into a little bit of detail about some of those workshops that we've run recently that you guys can go take advantage of. So on the training front, we've had 3 training classes so far in a number of different locations, including San Francisco, New York, and London. And the next training class that's coming up is in San Francisco. We're doing it the day before Atlassian Summit. And unfortunately, this is already sold out and fully subscribed, but if you're going to Summit and interested in getting on the wait list, you can drop an email to Allison Edel, and her email address is on the screen right now, and she'll add you to the wait list. As well, we are planning to do additional classes this fall, and so if you do have interest in joining one of these classes for the JIRA admin training, please send an email to Allison, and she will add you to the wait list. And be sure to indicate where you're located, so we can try to figure out exactly where to place the next class. We have requests from sort of all over the country in the U.S. and all over the world, and we'll try to figure out how to place them in the right spot so that most people can attend. So on the webinar front that I was telling you about earlier, we've run a number of technical workshops over the last couple of months, including one on JIRA Agile concepts, including JIRA and JIRA Agile, which is the product that's formerly known as Greenhopper. We've also done a session on security and permission management, as well as one on Confluence theme design. And we're going to continue to develop more of these workshops over the coming months. The one that's currently in the works is one on performance for JIRA. So this is tentatively planned. We're still trying to work out some of the logistics and the kinks in this one, but we hope to be able to announce this one to you fairly soon. Recordings of all these sessions are all available on the Atlassian Enterprise Resources page. And if you go to that link there, the short link, We Go Big, you'll get access to all of those. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel, and all of the enterprise webinars will be available there. And information about that can all be found at that link if you go to the thing you see on the page. On the community front, we've also kicked off a community group on LinkedIn. So if you're not already a member of this, I encourage you to go to LinkedIn and join. If you're an Atlassian Enterprise customer and your work email is associated with your LinkedIn profile, you should be able to automatically join. If not, just request to join, and we'll get you processed and get you added if you provide the SEN of your Atlassian Enterprise license. So this is actually a great place to stay in touch with what's going on. We announce all of the webinars like these as far as when we do the live ones, and we'll also post when the recordings are available for you to view after the fact. And it's also a great opportunity for you to connect with other Atlassians and other customers that are deploying large environments of JIRA and Confluence and Stash, and share ideas or to ask questions. And so for those of you out there that have multiple JIRA instances, there's a good chance that that you may not have all of your instances on the new Atlassian Enterprise licensing. So we introduced Atlassian Enterprise for JIRA back in February of 2012. And along with that, we also announced that we were going to end the previous license of JIRA Unlimited. And everybody got 2 years of grandfathering for that license. But now that we're getting pretty close to February of 2014, those licenses are going to be beginning to expire. So I wanted to make sure that for anybody out there that may have additional JIRA instances that are running the old legacy JIRA Unlimited license, that licensing will begin to end in February. So if your renewal expires sometimes after February, you'll have to renew at one of the new tiers that are available for your JIRA licensing. And we'll be reaching out to each one of you, and we may have already done this either via a survey or via a phone call to try to make sure that we get you renewed on the proper tier. The other thing that's going on is that if you do decide to move to an Atlassian Enterprise tier and you decide to renew early, if you do so, you can take advantage of the benefits of Atlassian Enterprise right away. So that means the 24/7 support, access to all of these webinars live, and so on and so forth is all available to you straight away, as well as the training. So that's a good incentive for you to renew early if you get the chance. You cannot renew today. The renewal functionality will be online, hopefully at some point in the next 30 days or so. So by October, you should be able to start processing your renewals from February going forward. So the last, if you want more information about Atlassian Enterprise, of course, there's a couple of links that will be made available here, and of course, this deck and the recording of this will be made available online later, so you'll be able to get access to all of these resources. One last announcement for me is around Summit. So Summit is coming up in San Francisco from October 1st to the 3rd. It's an awesome event. We are almost doubling the amount of attendees that we had from last year to this year. It's very, very exciting. 5 tracks, jam-packed with lots of information. I myself am doing I'm one of the track owners for the Inside the Massive Team track. And this is a track, we have 9 sessions, all dedicated to the largest deployments of Atlassian software. And we got some great speakers from a variety of customers, including LinkedIn and Symantec and Pandora, and a number of our experts as well. And there's some great panels. We're talking about everything from enterprise deployment to adoption to performance to scaling agile. The agenda is actually really, really, really good this year. So I encourage you, if you've not already signed up for Atlassian Summit, that you go to summit.atlassian.com, register, and get yourself out to San Francisco in October. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and pass it back to Bartek, who will take us into the next section about JIRA administration.
Thank you, Ken. This is my first time participating in a JIRA Enterprise webinar, and I really appreciate the opportunity. I'd like to dive into the topics of administration and JIRA Federation, have a look at the features which we have already made available, as well as give a sneak peek preview of the things which are coming. But before I do that, I need to follow the strict request of our legal team. Any discussion of future feature development or what's coming in the future and mention of future functionality, dates, versions, or specific future releases or products doesn't represent a commitment. Having said that, we know we want to follow the example of the leaders in electronic equipment manufacturing, and we will pretend the information has somehow leaked out of our labs. We know that you love it, and you should know that we love sharing this information. So with that said, let me just flip the slide. Let's take a look at the JIRA administration. In the recent enterprise survey that we have run, we have learned that 27% of enterprise customers would like to see the improvements in the administrative features of JIRA. That is exactly what we expect you to say, and we understand it as JIRA is a great flexible tool, but please help us get the most of the flexibility with as little effort as possible. We have recognized this demand several releases back, so let me show you the improvements we have made over the past couple of years and what we have changed and why. So let's rewind the clock a few releases back. One of the most important elements of the configuration is the workflow. It is the DNA of the project, its life, and definition of states and actions. Starting with JIRA 5.1, we took on a task of gradually simplifying the workflow configuration process. The first thing we did is we made it possible to edit workflows inside of a project. This has already reduced several mouse clicks to identify the scheme and consequently made the project editing easier and faster. In JIRA 5.2, we decided to make it even easier. And we added the possibility of workflow editing even though it was active, but was used only in one single project. Again, a number of required mouse clicks was reduced, while the flexibility of the solution was not impacted. We also made visual improvements to the workflow editor, and we made it possible for the users to see the actual workflow within the project configuration and from each issue being worked on. Let's move on to JIRA 6. We are really proud of this release. First significant improvement was to allow for all the workflow schemes to be editable, regardless if they are active or not, and if they are only used in one project or in many. Previously, if you wanted to add an issue to a workflow scheme, and that workflow scheme was associated with hundreds of projects, you had to manually unassociate and then reassociate those projects. Now we've eliminated what was potentially hours of work. We also added the workflow sharing capability. Never built a workflow from scratch in JIRA? Now you don't need to. You can get started quickly with workflows, just importing them from Atlassian Marketplace. You can share workflows between your JIRA instances, or if you are a pro already, you can export your workflow to the Atlassian Marketplace so that others don't have to do all the hard work. We have also added other improvements not related to JIRA workflows. It is not uncommon for people to change names when they get married, when they become famous, etc. User rename feature allows you to change the names of the users and not lose any of the context associated with the previous username. And bulk watch and unwatch operation makes it easier to manage notification in case multiple issues. All of these features were already shipped, but we are not stopping here. Let's see what is coming soon, and there's a lot of it. First of all, we want to make sure that workflow administration becomes even easier. We are redesigning the whole workflow editing experience. The new workflow designer is going to look fantastic. It will save the layout on every change you make to it and provide a snap-on alignment feature, helping with the state and transition placement so that you can make your workflow look exactly as you want every time you open it for editing or preview. This is also going to be rewritten in HTML and align perfectly with our ADG design guidelines. The workflows will look identical in the editor and in the workflow preview. And because of all the underlying changes, the editor is going to work much, much faster. The second improvement is related to issue field creation and screen editing. Currently, these processes require multiple steps and application of respective schemes. We want you to be able to do it right from the issue view screen, just with few clicks. The created fields will automatically be added to the issue screen. As the organizations grow, some projects are finished, but some are continued over many years. And even though the project is the same, the name is being changed. Wait, but you can change the name of the project today, right? Yes, but the project key, which was used for data identification, could not be edited. This is something many of you have asked for, and therefore we are going to provide a project key rename feature really soon. Finally, for the immediate future, the plan is to provide a limited user picker field, allowing you to narrow down the list of users displayed on the drop-down lists in edit issue screens, as well as an inline edit. You will be able to configure the list based on the user groups and user roles per each project, issue type, and screen. For a bit more distant future, the plan is to work on further simplification of configuration and elimination of the need of using various schemes across JIRA. And together with the simplification, we plan to gradually deliver a feature allowing project admins to take more responsibilities for the project and reducing the load put on the shoulders of JIRA admins. Delegated admin feature is in fact one of the most voted requests on jira.atlassian.com, currently placed at noble 4th place by the number of votes. But sharing the administrative powers can be tricky, so we also plan to deliver auditing, allowing you to see and react to administrative changes performed by project admins. This is currently jira.atlassian.com 21st most voted request. But above all, we want to tailor JIRA to your particular needs, and on that note, we are moving to the poll question number 1. During the previous poll executed in February, 24% of you indicated you need auditing and 14% indicated you need delegated admin. As I said, we plan to approach these two together, but we will deliver this functionality in several stages. So the question is, in your opinion, what is the most important capability to provide to JIRA project admins? And here are the results. The most voted request is to allow for modifying permissions and notifications, and then shortly followed by modifying workflow configuration. So let me be clear here with you. We were expecting a bit different answer. However, modifying workflow was actually on that list, so it's not that much different from what we expected. We actually thought, based on the feedback gathered from jira.atlassian.com, that you will vote mostly on the screens and screen editing. Flip the slide. The next topic of our presentation today is JIRA Federation. So what is JIRA Federation? It is about making the experience of using multiple instances of JIRA as close as possible to the experience of using a single instance of JIRA. Federation has been a topic of several past releases already. In JIRA 5.2, we worked really hard on sharing all of our knowledge related to Federation with you through the Federation guides. It is a powerful set of public documents, including, among others, hints on how to migrate, merge, and split instances using existing functionalities of JIRA. It also describes in full details the Federation features added in previous releases, such as gadgets added in JIRA 4, allowing you to unify the reporting of your dashboards, application links and central user management over LDAP and crowd added in JIRA 4.3, which allowed the gadgets to be shared between JIRA instances where the same user was logged on, or unified activity streams added in JIRA 5.0, allowing you to see what is going on in different JIRA servers from a single page of your dashboard. And all of that allowed the separate JIRA instances to start working in conjunction with each other. If you want to learn more about these features, please read the Federation guides or play back the previous enterprise webinars where we talk about these features in more details. JIRA 6 was where we also added other improvements helping in Federation. We have massively improved the JIRA to JIRA issue copy plugin. It allows you to copy issues between federated JIRA instances in a matter of several clicks. This plugin is available for free on Atlassian Marketplace. We have also added a new application navigation header to the top menu. It allows you to easily navigate between different JIRA instances and different Atlassian products. In conjunction with the application links, the switching between the trusted instances is now really fast. Last but not least, we added the workflow sharing capabilities, which I have already mentioned in the administration section. But let me spend a few more moments on this topic because I think it is serving the Federation purposes really nicely. Workflow sharing is not only allowing you to pull the ready workflows from the marketplace, But what is more important from the Federation perspective, it actually allows the more centralized administration in case multiple instances of JIRA are in place. You can edit your workflow on one JIRA instance and then publish it to all the other instances. This is really speeding the process up a lot. And with just a few mouse clicks, the part of configuration related to workflows can be easily transported from the testing environment to the live environment. But there's even more coming soon. Here are the topics we plan to take a stab at in the future. I have already mentioned JIRA to JIRA issue copy plugin. We plan further improvements to this plugin and also make it cover the issue move scenario. And remember the user rename. We want to make it also work with remote LDAP and crowd repositories so that it will be possible to rename users in federated JIRA environments without any hassle. And on that note, we are moving to the poll question number 2. How urgent is additional scale and availability for your current JIRA environment? Please vote using the radio buttons and press submit, and let's see for those results in a moment. Okay, thank you. Here are the results. Yes, even though we added a lot of improvements in the scalability and availability of JIRA in the past, we still see that it's an ongoing demand from you, a clear indication for us that we still have to invest in this area a lot. Now I'd like to bring in Brian Rollins, the JIRA business manager, to talk about scalability and performance topics.
Hey, thanks so much, Bartek. So as Bartek was just saying, he was talking about Federation as one way to scale JIRA. But of course, we're still investing in the scale of an individual instance. And that's what I'm going to talk about next. Of course, all the way throughout, if you've got questions, feel free to post them as we're going along, because we've got a question and answer period at the time where we want to get to as many of those as possible. Again, jumping onto JIRA Scale, since most of you, from what we saw in terms of what versions you're running, you're already on JIRA 5.1 or JIRA 5.2, a lot of you have seen some of the impact of performance enhancements in your own JIRA instance. And of course, JIRA 5.1 was a major milestone in that on our path to better performance. We dramatically increased both the speed as well as the capacity of JIRA. And we really laid a handful of foundations for more improvements around performance. Now, as a consequence of these performance improvements and the improvements of server hardware, this has actually opened the floodgates for a lot of customers. And so as a result, we're now seeing some of our customers storing much larger numbers of issues in their JIRA instances. 500,000 issues is not uncommon as we talk to customers now, and we actually had a conversation with one customer just yesterday morning where they've broken the 2 million issue barrier in JIRA. And so we're seeing, again, larger and larger JIRA instances as JIRA becomes more and more broadly used inside of customer organizations. Now in JIRA 5.2 we took a slightly different tactic because we knew that while we'd increased the overall capability of JIRA in 5.1, we knew there were a set of hotspots or bottlenecks, and so we really focused heavily on those. We increased the search speed in case of large numbers of issues. We improved a lot of core system capabilities around indexing and version management. We focused on import and export where there had been some high memory utilization challenges, and we even improved page load times for a lot of our core pages in JIRA. And so as a result, in talking with customers, we found that they were reporting not only higher performance, but higher availability because of the reduced memory load inside of JIRA. And again, there's a lot more information in some of our scaling guides about these. But again, really happy with the results that we saw and how far customers could scale their issues and what performance and reliability results that they saw after both JIRA 5.1 and 5.2. But in JIRA 6.0, the main impacts on performance could actually be seen on the front end. So we turned our attention from sort of the performance of REST APIs and the performance of the database and the performance of queries towards the front end. So how did the user interface actually react, and what's the user experience? And we began some of this journey well over a year ago, trying to improve the core issues experience in JIRA. And we feel that the performance of that core issues experience is just as important as some of the core performance capabilities and some of the usability improvements that we've made. So 6.0, of course, was really the culmination of this effort. We had started in JIRA 5.1 with inline edit and continuing on in JIRA 5.2 and finishing with the new detail view in JIRA 6.0, where you can triage a set of issues, making edits and performing operations, moving issues through the workflow, and you can do that all without ever triggering a page reload. And so overall, that prevents having to pull all those additional resources back from JIRA with each operation in the front end. Now, another area actually that where front-end performance is tremendously improved from 2 years ago is actually Agile. So, of course, JIRA Greenhopper is now called JIRA Agile, but the Agile boards are much, much faster in comparison to the previous, what we now call classic boards, especially for large organizations. That was one of the biggest reasons we made that architectural change. And so if you haven't switched over to the new Agile boards, I highly recommend making the switch now, especially if you're in that category of people who are looking for new and scaling and performance improvements. Now, a note just for customers, some new performance tests that we've just developed after JIRA 6.0 actually highlighted some performance challenges with search in some of our early point releases for JIRA 6.0. We've actually been able to correct those, but if you're a large enterprise customer, I'd recommend upgrading. If you've already upgraded to JIRA 6, you should definitely consider picking up one of our bug fix releases. So anything beyond 6.07, and in fact, I believe 6.08 was just released earlier this week. And so if you get the latest and greatest, any of those search challenges are actually taken care of. So in the end user performance, we believe, is one of the most important criteria, because that's when your users come back to you with challenges and questions about performance, and that's going to determine a lot of their happiness with JIRA. And if they're happy with JIRA performance, then your job as a JIRA owner or a JIRA administrator gets a lot easier. So switching over to our enterprise resources that actually deal with scaling, we've made some updates to our Scaling JIRA guide since our last webinar. As Ken mentioned, all of our enterprise resources are available at this shortened URL, We Go Big. We also produced in the last year a sizing guide for JIRA. So you can get an idea of how far you might scale your JIRA instance, and that actually comes with an actual Google spreadsheet you can copy over and then use to get a recommendation on how far you could scale one of your JIRA instances. Now, as we mentioned in our last webinar, we've been developing an archiving solution for JIRA. Now, what JIRA Archiver allows is it allows a customer to actually move the issues and the associated configurations, so workflows, schemes, etc., from a primary JIRA instance to an archiver instance. This is perfect for JIRA instances which have old projects that are no longer active, or for longer running projects with large volumes of old issues. This can be done either by moving an entire project or moving issue level archiving. And this really improves not only just the usability of JIRA by reducing the clutter caused by old projects or old issues, but of course it provides you additional scale, additional capacity as well. Now, a number of you actually expressed interest after our last webinar, and you were invited to our beta program. We actually received great feedback from a number of customers who put Archiver to the test. And the main piece of feedback was that the necessity of archiving plug-in data and not just the issue data stored in issues in custom fields was critical. So for those of you familiar with some of the storage mechanisms in JIRA, specifically things that were stored in tables like active objects or other mechanisms that plug in store data in, those were the key things that we heard from customers that they wanted in Archiver. So our plan is to finish this work in order to launch Archiver and make the offering available to customers. So the beta program is actually closed, but look for an announcement in the future about testing the new versions. And thanks again to everyone who evaluated the JIRA Archiver beta. It's going to be absolutely a better product because of your efforts. Now, even with the improved performance in the last several releases, as we saw from our poll, many customers' JIRA instances are still growing by leaps and bounds, and you're looking for a way to scale further. And in many cases, JIRA is absolutely mission critical to their organization. So we hear a lot of customers say our financial system and JIRA are our top 2 enterprise applications. And this often actually goes hand in hand with JIRA becoming kind of a standard in an organization and being centrally managed often by a centralized team. So that can either be managed by IT or sometimes being managed by a central dev tools team. And as a result, we even see a lot of cases more and more where JIRA is now a service that a core team provides as a service essentially back to other business units or departments across the organization. In response to your feedback, we're basically investigating today a solution for further JIRA Scale as well as JIRA High Availability. So both of those two things that Bartek had mentioned before in the poll. And this would be a new offering for very large enterprise customers. So we've actually already made progress on the architecture, and we've actually begun working on customers with their requirements and use cases. But for all of you, listening today and watching this later on, we are actively looking for early access customers. And so if you're interested in working with Atlassian and you'd be willing to try our solutions out in your test JIRA environments, and if you'd like to play an active role in helping shape the solutions, we'd absolutely love to work with you. So if you're interested in participating in the early access program, performing the testing, and providing feedback, I'd ask you to please contact Roy Krishna, whose email is listed here. Or if you're joining us live on the webinar, the exit survey today you can check the answer that says you have an immediate need. You'd be interested in participating in the early access program, and we can follow up with you that way. So again, some new exciting things we're working on for the future in JIRA, which actually leads us to our third poll question, which is how much growth do you expect in your JIRA environment this year? And I realize you may have multiple environments, so you can say in your maybe largest JIRA environment or your main JIRA environment. Wow, the results are coming back in, and I have to admit, even I'm a little stunned at these, so I expected a more even distribution in this particular area. So no one is growing less than 10% in the coming 12 months, which that certainly matches a lot of the interviews we had. But I thought we'd at least have a handful of enterprises who weren't growing that fast. So if you're investing in a stock or you're looking at revenue growth, anything between 25 and 50% is pretty great year over year. So this means if you could actually invest in JIRA Growth, this would be a pretty great investment, because we've got 50% year over year as a full third of our customers out there. So fascinating information. My eyes are definitely wide at this point. I expected a little more even distribution in the 10 to 25% range. But again, thanks so much for that information. So we wanted to actually finish today by talking about JIRA 6. So we're gonna switch over to that. So thanks so much for, again, your answers there. Can we switch off back to the poll, back to the slides? Excellent. So I mentioned before about we wanted to focus on performance, specifically to make end users happier and to provide end user satisfaction. So we think that makes your job easier. We think that means less work for you. And so in JIRA 6, the headline for our release was a whole new JIRA, and we believe that's really the case if you compare JIRA 5 to JIRA 6. So thanks to the Atlassian design guidelines, there's essentially JIRA got a lot better looking, but it's actually not just about looks. So it's about consistency, so users can easily move between the different sections of JIRA, but it's also consistency across Atlassian applications. So most of you here today actually have Confluence. You have our development tools like Stash and Bamboo and others, and so as a result, your users who are switching between our tools actually have a more consistent experience across all of them. And the great news is, since we've made our Atlassian design guidelines public, third-party developers who build add-ons for JIRA can also follow the ADG standards within their product as well. And so not only do all Atlassian applications, but all Atlassian add-ons begin to have a more consistent look and feel and behavior. And again, that makes it much, much easier for users. And so JIRA 6 actually comes with our first built-in mobile interface. And we built this specifically so you can stay connected with your team, whether you're at your desk or on the go, commuting into work. We built that mobile experience specifically so you could go immediately from email notifications to view the issue on your phone. You can quickly take action by making comments, and you can keep up to date by using your favorite filters from the phone. We also improved the create project experience, so we provided some variety in types of project you could create, and in many cases, if you have JIRA Agile, it can immediately create a project and build an Agile board right on top of that project as well. We also put in a number of great new things for power users. So One of my favorite features is the new dot dialog. So we've always had the dot dialog in JIRA where you could perform a set of actions from view issue, but we really took that to the next level. So now it's possible from the dot dialog, which you get by just pressing the period key on either the issue navigator or within view issue. It's possible to perform actions or operations and transitions like you could before, but now it's also actually possible to update your search criteria. So as you're doing a search, you actually don't need the mouse to actually change, let's say, a custom field value that you're searching for. You can also jump to edit a specific field. So we've taken inline edit, and it's now keyboard driven as well, all through one single dialog. And we've combined it with the capability we introduced with the GG shortcut. So now through the period, you can actually also jump to a section of administration. And so for a power user, this is a fantastic feature. For all of you who are JIRA administrators and JIRA power users, this is something we use every day in the JIRA development team, and it's one of those features that once you start using it, you can't imagine not having it before. And so last but certainly not least, JIRA's detail view, which in combination with inline edit for us here on the JIRA team, this has actually made triaging issues much faster. Our JIRA team triage sessions for bug fix and for looking at the end of release about what we're going to cut and keep are about 1/3 as long. So actually about 3 times faster than they were before. So we believe those changes in JIRA 6 have absolutely made a difference in a lot of our audiences. And so finally, we're very excited about 6.0. When we introduce changes to view issue in JIRA 4.1, I'll be honest that the reviews were mixed because we hadn't completed that journey until JIRA 4.2 with some of the design changes. And many of you let us know through customer feedback. And so in JIRA 6, we really took that in mind. We weren't going to ship until the experience we were targeting was complete. And the feedback to JIRA 6 has been incredibly positive. Customers love it. Here are just a few quotes, but there are many that have come in. We love to hear things like awesome from our customers because that's what we strive to produce. Now, JIRA 6, of course, shipped in May. And we know many of you have already upgraded and are already seeing the benefits. And for the rest of you, you absolutely have a lot to look forward to. So actually, speaking of user feedback, it's actually time for our final poll question. And this deviates from a lot of the poll questions we've asked before, which are more about instance size or scaling. But we're actually curious, for large organizations, how do you actually collect feedback on your primary JIRA instance from your end users? Maybe your administrators meet with end users or the developers regularly who actually are the end users of the tool. Maybe your administrators meet with managers, so development managers, team managers who represent bodies of users. Maybe your users submit feedback in the form of JIRA issues. Or maybe it comes in via email or another automatic collection mechanism. Looks like we've got our survey results. Let's see. So actually, hey, I'd like to see that it comes in the form of JIRA issues. That's great. And I suppose every JIRA instance has a project that's about JIRA itself. So great that we're using the tool for that. Also email and other mechanisms. We've been doing a lot more, I think, focus on usability in JIRA ourselves, so we've been doing a lot more meetings, but we're also been using a lot of the same mechanisms that we created, so you'll notice more and more in JIRA, especially if you're an on-demand customer, if you have one of those instances as well, using the issue collector to actually collect feedback on JIRA. And in fact, all those quotes that we provided came from the issue collector for people just commenting on their end product experience, so that's been great. So actually now, one of the things we really wanted to do in this webinar was provide time for questions. And so I'm going to take a handful of the questions that, that folks have submitted and answer those. So starting off, let's see. We've got, here's one. So Brian, with high availability, are you talking about clustering JIRA? That is a great question. That's certainly an option we're investigating. Again, that'd be a new offering for JIRA customers, so we're looking for something that would be quite a bit different from the traditional standalone deployments of JIRA with a single server license and configuration. So it's certainly something we're looking heavily at. We realize that matches a lot of enterprise customer needs. Let's see, let's look at other questions here. Oh, when is JIRA 6.1 coming out? I wonder if this is someone who's been on our early access program for JIRA 6.1 so far. While we always gate our releases on quality, so we don't force a ship date, generally it happens around 6 weeks after beta, or around maybe 4 weeks of our first release candidate. And so if you're one of those customers who actually follows our early access program and pulls down early releases, which everyone has the availability to look at, so you can always just go to just JIRA 6.1, or sorry, just to look for JIRA Early Access Program, and you can get those releases. Now, you'd know that JIRA 6.1 beta was actually released in the last couple of weeks, so JIRA 6.1 is not too far away at all. Let's see. What else do we have here? That's interesting. This is a good one. So with the new offerings around high availability, are you moving away from Federation? We'll absolutely keep investing in Federation. Now, we've received a lot of feedback. So Bartek and myself and Ken have been talking with a number of customers around this, and we've found that Federation falls into, I would say, 2 separate camps. So I'll call the first camp loose coupling. And that essentially means people want Federation largely for navigation, for a centralized user base, and maybe for things we've introduced like linking or copying issues. But then there's a second camp we've talked to that's around tighter coupling. So they really want a number of JIRA instances to act as one centralized set of, single set of workflows, centralized configuration, full-featured searching and reporting across multiple instances. And that desire for tighter coupling is quite different from our current plans for Federation, which really our current plans have matched more of that loosely coupled approach. So, for those customers who wanted more tightly coupled JIRA instances, we actually began to ask them a different set of questions. In the end, the overwhelming majority of those customers actually said they preferred a single large JIRA instance that scaled over having multiple instances. And so where many people wanted multiple instances, loose coupling was their preference. So this is a big part of our motivation to look at new solutions for both high availability and scale for our largest enterprise customers. So I guess for other questions, let's take a look at these. So let's see, here we go. When will profile information from Active Directory and LDAP be utilized, so users don't have to enter all their profile information and photos separately into each and every Atlassian app? That's a great question. There are a number of investigations and actually investments that we're making, first in our on-demand infrastructure that then will carry over into our downloaded products. So there are a number of things we're looking at if you have Atlassian on-demand instances. Our navigation approach across applications shipped there first, and then we moved it into our behind the firewall product. So your ability to navigate across JIRA, Confluence, Bamboo, all from the app switcher in the upper left-hand corner. And this is something where, hey, it makes sense that if someone has signed up for an on-demand offering, and if it makes sense that you have multiple Atlassian applications in your environment, that you'd want that shared profile. So certainly something we're thinking about. I'll be just very honest, it's not something you'd see in JIRA 6.1 in our next coming release, but certainly something that we're looking at. We don't have a specific targeted date for it. Let's see, when will app navigation be available for all Atlassian apps, and what about third-party apps such as others? So it turns out today that in app navigation, you can actually, maybe I'm misunderstanding the question. If you're talking about navigation between applications, you can do a lot of this today. So in JIRA 6.0, when we shipped the navigation capabilities in the header, one is any Atlassian application that's application linked automatically appears in your navigation dropdown in that upper left hand, what we call the hot dog, 3 lines in a row, kind of similar to what you'd see on a lot of mobile applications. And you can actually add any other applications in there if you have a URL. So if it's a web-based application, it's actually something you can do already today. So apologies if I'm misunderstanding the question. Feel free to ask it again and I can follow up online. But you should be able to get any Atlassian app into that an application navigator and any other web-based application simply by entering the URL and the configuration for that system. Let's see. So a question on Archiver. When will the Archiver have support for plugin data, and when roughly will it be released? We don't have a release date for it yet. Again, plugin data is something that that's the next thing we want to work on. I would imagine we may be reaching out to our beta customers before the end of this calendar year to test something out, but no specific date on Archiver yet. I think to set your expectations, I doubt it would ship in production before the end of this calendar year, just to set your expectations. Okay, here's an interesting one on OnDemand. So we know a lot of our enterprise customers some have expressed interest in being able to move to our hosted offering. So any update on the ability of OnDemand to support all custom plugins? There's been talk of supporting this, but I haven't heard about much of it lately. Also, when can it scale to large organizations? So 2 questions in there. I'll give you 2 for the price of 1. So first, we've announced a program called Atlassian Connect. And so that's essentially our architecture for plugins in Atlassian OnDemand. And so if you wanted to plug into a JIRA OnDemand instance, we've released a set of APIs and plugin points that then work. A key part of our OnDemand infrastructure is because our existing plugin infrastructure lets you do just about anything today. We needed to come up with a new architecture for Atlassian Connect, which provides much more control, much more security, so we can control that environment. And so there are a handful of Atlassian Connect add-ons that have been built, and we're working with a lot of marketplace vendors who are very excited about building more and more plugins that'll work for OnDemand. So I think Atlassian Connect is the best thing to search for. And there's, again, a whole set of APIs and a whole community that are starting to develop plugins around OnDemand. In terms of scaling to large organizations, a lot of our focus has been on scale for our downloaded products as opposed to our OnDemand products. That's been the focus of our scale today. But of course, a lot of those benefits actually then transfer into OnDemand. So I don't think we have published a plan to scale OnDemand farther beyond the user limits that we have today. And so typically I think that's, we do see customers, however, with 500, 2,000 users in OnDemand, but no specific plans to increase that in the short term. But certainly the long term, as we've been working with a number of enterprise customers who are interested in a fully Atlassian hosted offering. Let's see, what else do we have here? Will there be an option to move complete projects between JIRA instances in JIRA 6X or JIRA 7X? That's a really good question. Certainly something I've talked to a number of you about in the past. Part of the technology that we've developed in Archiver does essentially that at its core. And so we'd certainly like at some point in the future to be able to repackage that so that you could move projects, especially for customers like we mentioned, who are centralizing around one core JIRA. And so as a part of that centralization, they have a number of JIRA instances where they want to move those all to one large JIRA. And so that's absolutely something that as a part of that centralized management, high availability and scale package, I could imagine making it a part of that as well too. So certainly we've got the technology. There's additional work to be able to package it, make sure it's works across potentially different versions of JIRA instances, and all the use cases that I've talked with customers about. We've got just a few more minutes, so keep your questions coming. We're going to try to answer as many as we can. Let's see. Is planned any feature to move the JIRA attachments from local disk to be managed through an external database? Oh, this is interesting because we get just if we have products which actually manage attachments in a database, and we get the request to move them out of the database onto a local disk so people can more easily replicate them. So I don't think there is a plan to move them off of local disk. Now, of course, a lot of our customers actually don't use local disk. They'll use a SAN, or they'll use some other place that is not directly attached to the application server. And so that's not an uncommon architecture, but no plans today to move them purely to an external database. Let's see. any efforts being made to make it easier to merge and split JIRA instances? So I'll just relate that back to my answer around the project move, because clearly if you could move projects from one instance to another, that would actually give you the capability to actually merge instances, because you could move projects from one instance to another. And of course, by moving those projects, that would essentially copy over all the underlying configuration schemes, et cetera, et cetera. And here's actually another related question, which says, I like the support for moving workflows. Are there plans to extend that to screen schemes, permission schemes, et cetera? I think the way we're continuing to look at that is that that might be a part of Project Move, but we're certainly looking at other ways about how customers might move from deployment instances of, from test instances of JIRA to staging instances of JIRA, and then to production instances of JIRA. Let's see. Let's take a couple more before we end our time here. Let's take a look at. I'm just looking to see if there's any here that are common across a lot of other folks. Plans on solving high voted issues. Oh, that's always a good question. So we always keep the highest voted issues updated with our plans. We try to keep the top 25 always updated. We've actually made really good progress on several issues like rename user and about 5 or 6 others in the last 12 months. But I think you probably even saw in Bartek's presentation slides early on that the ability to edit project keys and a few others are in the works, and so you should see those in the next couple of JIRA releases. So we're continuing to work more and more on those highly voted issues. Again, I always like to save a few surprises for when the release itself ships, so that's always good. Our last question, I've got to pick this one, which is, what does JIRA mean anyway? Rather odd name, wouldn't you say? It is. It's absolutely an odd name. It has a great history. It actually came early on from the Japanese word for Godzilla, which is Gojira. And so we dropped the Go, and JIRA became the name of Atlassian's first product. And in talking to customers, one of my favorite things, it's become a noun in many of their organizations for a ticket. And so no one says file an issue, no one says file a ticket, no one says file a feature request, no one says enter a story. They say, oh, can you please add a JIRA for that? So it's become a little bit of vocabulary and parlance in a lot of organizations. So I think with that, we're actually even over our original allotted time, but we did want to have some more time for Q&A, so we extended the session a little bit longer here. Thanks to all of you who did submit questions. We really appreciate that. And as always, in closing, I like to say thanks for attending the webinar. Thanks for your continued feedback. The product continues to be a better product because of all your participation. And that includes those of you who attend Summit, it includes those of you who submit feature requests, it includes those of you who submit questions on these webinars. So we can't say thanks enough, because it absolutely shapes a lot of the decisions that we make on a daily basis. So not just from Ken and Bartek and myself, but from the entire Atlassian team, from development, design, documentation, everyone involved, marketing. We really appreciate your participation as a large enterprise Atlassian customer. And I hope you have a great rest of your day, evening, or early morning for those of us in Sydney. Thanks again, everybody.